Hi, welcome to week 6 of Vital Signs Learning Skills. Today we're going to look at the skill of Discovery Bible Study, how to facilitate a discovery group. We sometimes shorten this and use the letters DBS. Now, in your companion, you'll see we're on this sheet here, and you'll see the information we're going to be talking about there and a brief explanation underneath there. Now, I love to use this tool for people that are now interested in hearing more about the gospel. They may be a friend, a neighbor, a relative, or someone I met in the community or through a church event, and they're keen to hear more of the gospel. And so Discovery Bible Study is a great tool to use either informally with someone or more formally by forming a little group. And that's sort of what we've done up at Floribunda Court. We've got 5 residents up there that we met during Christmas Connect. We followed them up, we talked to them about being a part of such a group, and they expressed some interest. So we started the little group, and now we're 4 or 5 weeks into the Discovery Bible Study group. And through the group, they're discovering for themselves who Jesus is and beginning the journey of following him. So I just want to take a couple more minutes and explain how this works. Firstly, on your sheet, you'll see there's a series of 6 passages from Luke's Gospel. I call these 6 stories of hope. Now, they're not the only stories you can use, but this is a proven set of stories that I've used many times, and they work really well. And you'll see the passage references and the themes of the stories there. And then with each story, there's the same set of 5 questions that I use. And again, these questions are really proven. Feel free to adjust them a little bit and supplement them, but as is, they're pretty good to use. And you'll see the first couple questions: what does the story say to us about God and about Jesus? To get the discussion happening with the person or persons that you're doing the discovery group. What does the story say to us about people? What do we learn about the people in the story? Like the first story, the paralyzed man lowered through the hole in the roof. What do we learn about his friends? What do we learn about the man himself? What do we learn about the Pharisees and teachers of law that are sitting around criticizing? The next question: in this story, is there an example that we could follow, or is there a command to obey that's either explicit or implicit? And it's really good to get people to begin to think about those things and discuss those things. Then the application questions, questions 4 and 5. What will you do with what you've learned? And you'll notice there's a typo in your notes. It's supposed to read, what will you do with what you've learned today? In other words, how can you put into practice what you've learned today? It might even be something super small, but we want to encourage people from the time they begin engaging with the scriptures that we don't just read them and not apply them, but we read them and look for ways that we can apply what we've learned into our lives right away. And then the final question: well, who do you know that needs to hear this story? So we want people to be immediately thinking about, hey, these stories are important, they're powerful, there's stuff in here that every person needs to know. And so who do you know that needs to hear the story? Who could you share with this week, perhaps, the story? Now, the way we go about telling these stories and retelling them and then reading them helps people learn how to share these stories. And so you'll notice in the notes, I'm suggesting the best way, or my favorite way that is to tell the story as best as you can from the text. Get the person you're meeting with, or the persons you're meeting with, to try to retell whatever they can remember from the story. So it's not a heavy thing, but it's a fun thing. And if you make it a fun thing, people will really engage with this. And again, I've done this dozens, if not scores or hundreds of times with all kinds of people that aren't Christians, and they'll do this, trust me. And then once we've told it and had to go at retelling it, then we read it from the text. Now, by the time we read it from the text, and we've done this well, they've heard me tell it, the facilitator, they've heard a partner tell it, and they've had to go out telling it themselves. So by the time they read it, they're really focused in the story, and they're paying attention to the details of the story. Because the reality is, it's easy to read a story or hear it read, and the details of the story go in one ear and they come out the other ear. And this method really helps us to engage with the detail of the story, so that when we ask the questions, they're really looking into the story and rereading verse by verse and point by point, and hopefully discovering exactly what the story says. And you'll see the 3 things, the 3 aims of Discovery Bible Study is that we understand what the story says, not just what I think it says or someone else says it says, but what does the story actually say? Secondly, what does it mean? And the questions 1 and 2 particularly help me unpack what the story means. What is Jesus teaching us here? What's being revealed about God in this story when Jesus says your sins are forgiven? What does that teach us? And then the question that begins to help us think about application. Question 3, example to follow or command to obey. So that helps us transition from it being out here to now you're helping people think about this story in relationship to their own life. And then we're going to bring it home by asking the application question. Now, how does this apply to my life? What will you do this week as a result of what you've learned? And who could you share this with? So, best way to do this is week by week. You could do it over a series of days, or sometimes if it's more informally, you just catch up with someone and you share a story, and then maybe might be another fortnight that you catch up later. But again, it's a good next step to offer people that's not dependent upon someone else. You can do this. And it's not dependent on a building or a program, but it's very simple. It can be very organic for you to be able to facilitate Discovery Bible Study. And again, the example I've shared with you is we're doing this at Floribunda Court. Sometimes I've done this informally with neighbors. They don't even know they're a part of a group, yet they're part of a group because I've been sharing these stories with them and helping them engage with the stories by asking these kinds of questions. Now, I hope that's helpful, and I hope you can be thinking about people in your life that you've maybe been sharing your story with. Maybe you've been telling them about your Christian life. Maybe they've asked some questions, and you don't know what to do next. Well, this is a great option to be able to offer your friend either formally or informally, or talk to a few people and say, hey, maybe you could form a little group. Now, if you've got any questions about any of that stuff, feel free to shoot me a text or send me an email or chat with me before or after church. And I'd love to be able to help you with, but hopefully that's enough to get you started. Thanks for your time. Bye now.